Coming into my fourth year in tech sales, I wanted to take a minute to reflect and think about what I would do today if I were trying to break in for the first time. But not only just talk about my own experience, I want to look at it from the lens of three different perspectives. Not having a degree and potentially looking at a college alternative, what I would do differently, especially when I was graduating college, and three, in my own situation, I ultimately worked in a different career as an engineer and made a career transition. So to anyone watching that is in a career that they don't want, looking at tech sales as a potential career change, what I would do in that situation. I think I would just call out first, over the last couple of years, there's been an explosion of content, not just this channel, but many others talking about what tech sales really is. Prior to that, no disrespect, but there were a lot of videos around people like Grant Cardone and other car salesmen, etc. And those are very relevant for what they do, but it wasn't exactly a lot like B2B tech sales. Regardless of where you're at, it's always beneficial if you have no exposure to tech sales whatsoever to at least just start looking at content like this to try and get a better idea before we do anything else. But that being said, if I was in the situation where I was maybe 18 years old, looking at potentially a college alternative or going to college, I would consider it on a few different things. If you're looking at college, I think there's still value in things like STEM degrees or highly specialized degrees that have a large job market upon graduation. So if you're looking at college and thinking about going that direction of computer science, anything science, technology, engineering, mathematics, finance, accounting, economics, right? Somewhere in that wheelhouse, you're going to be pretty well protected. Again, not guaranteed, but you're going to be in a pretty good spot and be very marketable upon graduation. And in those cases, I don't think it's really worth looking at a college alternative. Now, I will say whether you're 18, maybe you tried college for a bit and it didn't work out, I have partnered with Course Careers that does offer a college alternative, and I've seen a lot of success stories there. I also had a chance to meet the founder. So that is an option I do endorse if you are looking at a college alternative. But again, I think the flip side, just to call out there, is you can totally work your way up over time into major companies. But if you are going the route of trying to break into sales at 18, again, very possible, many success stories there, but have realistic expectations that you're probably gonna have to break into a startup. You may have to take a few jobs that are not desirable up front to then have a body of work and resume that equates and surpasses what a brand new college grad would have and bring to the table. And whether it's right or wrong, that's a different topic outside of this video, but there still really is a large desire to have college degrees, especially as you get to high growth startups and or FANG types of companies in tech sales. But again, just circling back and finalizing on this point, I do think at some point at any given time, if you've done a little bit of college, you can go to tech sales way more easily than I've seen cases in my own personal family, my network, where folks decided to wait to go to college and tried to do something else. And then by the time they were starting to look at college again, a lot of time had passed and they were less motivated to get the degree. So in my personal situation, may or may not be right for you. Again, if you have an inclination to go after a STEM degree or a highly specialized degree, try that. And at a minimum, if it doesn't work, you can then break into tech sales from there, but it's much harder to do the reverse, especially again, if you're still young, you're still motivated to pursue those STEM degrees. I think that is the optimal path I would take at 18. Now, let's consider maybe you are in college and you're looking at graduating and wanting to go into tech sales directly, or maybe in my case, I graduated with an engineering degree, but I highly doubted that engineering was going to be the long-term path for me. I ultimately did elect to go into engineering, but I don't think it was the right decision in hindsight. But regardless, before I get into that, if you're graduating college right now or working your way towards it, now is a great time to start networking. I can't stress enough, so many people in tech sales have kind of found themselves there because it's kind of the hot thing. Maybe they got a communications degree, a marketing degree, they weren't exactly sure what they wanted to do, they saw this SDR job and they got it. And the point and what I'm trying to illustrate is that if you have a clear desire to break into tech sales, you are already 80 to 90% ahead of people. And I'm not talking about telling your friends you're gonna get a tech sales job. I'm talking about going on LinkedIn and starting to network already. Going to the job fair and finding recruiters that have tech sales internships or full-time jobs, and even if you're 2 semesters out from graduating, still going up to them and starting a conversation. Hey, I'm a communications major right now, and I've really taken an interest in tech sales when I graduate. Unfortunately, that is coming up next spring, but I was just curious if I could give you my resume and just learn how I could put myself in that position. If you're actually going out of your way to do that, whether it's virtual, whether it's in person, you are so far ahead of so many people. Literally in my own experience, when I was at a college career fair, I was considering engineering and sales jobs, but I ultimately went up to AT&T and there were 30 people around this booth and 29 of them were trying to talk to the engineer who was displaying some piece of technology. I was the only person that went up to the other recruiter and said, "Hey, my name is Eric Finch. I'm really interested in your new graduate business development program. Here's my resume and I was curious what next steps might look like." She literally did not even interview me and gave me permission to sign up for the on-site interview in Atlanta. Like right then and there. I was the only person that actually had a clear desire to go into tech sales and was laser focused in with my desire to break in. And so all that to say, if you're in college right now and looking to break into tech sales, great. But if you're trying to figure this out in like the last month of your college career, right as the career fair is coming up, you're way too late. It does not take a ton of preparation to get ahead of the curve. Maybe you're graduating in 2 semesters. Like I said, go to career fairs, explain your situation, drop your resume off, and get used to having to introduce yourself at very low stakes. No one's obviously going to be in a position to hire you, but you can strike up a conversation and a recruiter is actually going to be excited that you're sitting there and curious about the job, as opposed to like, here's my resume, it'd be great to interview, right? In my case, again, I worked as an engineer for 3 years and I ultimately made that change. And in hindsight, I almost wish I had done it out of college. But if there's anything I did correctly, and this kind of speaks to both points, if you're about to graduate or if you're already working professionally. If you're graduating, thinking about sales, not sure you want to do it quite yet, but maybe you have that STEM degree, there are many large and high growth companies that have programs for new graduates that put you in an engineering position, but give you the opportunity to rotate through different departments. And that's part of how I got exposed to sales myself. The company I was at offered different rotations in sales, in marketing, and R&D. That is the start of where I got exposed to tech sales and really wanted to move in that direction. Now, if you're professionally in a situation, maybe you're at a tech company and you're in marketing, or maybe you're at a tech company in accounting, whatever it might be, you're in a great place to make that transition to tech sales, ideally internally, and at a minimum, if you're a working professional right now, I guarantee you there are sales professionals, if you're in tech, that you could speak with at your company. Send them a message on Slack, as uncomfortable as it is, or if you're not comfortable doing that, putting it on company property, find them in person, send them a text message, send them a LinkedIn, whatever makes you comfortable, and ask them about your situation. Hey, I'm in accounting and I've really taken an interest in tech sales, was curious if I could pick your brain for 10 minutes to learn more about your experience. Find someone on LinkedIn who has that unconventional background. Maybe they studied something different or transitioned from a different career altogether and are now in tech sales. Those are the people that will immediately empathize with your situation. When I have former engineers reach out to me, unfortunately I am busy, but as best as I can, when I see those types of messages, that's why I started making content on this channel. I was helping engineers like that for a year before I started even making content. So my point is, again, if you're a working professional, start to network within your company, ideally. That will be the easiest way to make that jump if you can. And if not, you've got a professional network, you've got colleagues that have moved on to different companies. Just leverage your network as best as possible. And if not, just start up cold conversations. But again, taking a step back, right? I've kind of covered those different scenarios and what I would do. Like in my case, I had worked for 3 years. I actually took a year off to play sports overseas. And then when I came back to the US, I had many people that I had known from my engineering career that had transitioned to sales. And that's part of how I broke into my first company, is actually through a former colleague. But I would stress, regardless of your situation, one, again, if you're 18, I would recommend, if you have the desire to go to college, you're going after a degree that has pretty good job prospects year over year, that's the path I would go. If you're about to graduate, start putting in the work, but let's talk about what that actually means. And again, professionally, if you work in any company, you have access to the sales team some way, somehow. So start having those conversations. Start putting yourself outside of your comfort zone and begin conversing with successful salespeople or salespeople that have backgrounds that match yours, etc. And that's what I would say regardless of your situation. So many people just don't know what sales is. Again, over the last 3 to 5 years, there's been a lot more awareness around the profession and a lot more insights from videos like this and other creators I recommend you watch. But my point being is get a lot of exposure and don't come in with a ton of preconceived notions as to what tech sales is. Honestly, at the entry level, you have to be a very good listener and be able to foster a conversation and ask simple questions. Doesn't mean you have to be incredibly full of bravado or incredibly extroverted. If you can have a nice conversation and just genuinely ask people about what they're doing, what they're up to, what their experience has been like in tech sales, you're checking a lot of boxes that a lot of people want to overcomplicate. From there, I'd recommend that you pick a vertical of the types of tech you want to sell. Maybe you're 18 and just graduating college. Do you have any tools or projects that you built on the side with certain technology, whether it's hardcore coding or maybe even more like digital products like Canva where you're designing things, etc. I'm not saying that it's possible to break in anywhere you want to go, but if you have any type of exposure to tech at 18 and you're trying to go directly into tech sales, that's a great starting point of trying to apply to all of those types of companies. Same with if you're graduating college, right? Maybe you have a communications major, you don't have a ton of exposure to tech, but just pick something, like whether it's databases, whether it's cloud infrastructure, whether it's something of that nature. Start to explore the types of companies that are either coming to your college or job openings you're seeing on LinkedIn. And you're never gonna know what the perfect one is gonna be, but whichever one looks the most interesting, find a company that you like, right? Maybe it's, I don't know, some database company. Now, not only are you going to prepare to interview with them, but now it makes sense and you will save yourself a lot of time by interviewing at numerous different database companies, because all of your research will compound on itself and you'll learn about the types of different technology. But you won't have to interview with a database company, then interview with an IT company, then interview with a cloud infrastructure company that are all doing different things, which means you have to research the same amount for each one. And again, if you're in that position where maybe you've been in a 9-to-5 cubicle type of job where you're not customer facing, you're not customer interacting, take time to take in content like this if you have no idea what tech sales is. But on the flip side, once you have a decent idea, it's really on you to get yourself out there and leverage your network. Start having real conversations with real people. Not, again, this video is a great starting point, but you need to have conversations with people who have been in the industry for a long time, as they will quickly shape and mold your perceptions in a much faster way than just taking in a video. As you start to have those conversations, you need to force yourself to apply. And again, I talk about this in other videos that I have, but I recommend if you're really making that push to break in, start to pull a list of maybe 10 to 20 companies, prioritize them from your ideal company to lowest, and just work your way up from lowest to highest in terms of your interest level. And that way, if you fail on the early ones, no big deal. You're getting some repetition. You didn't necessarily want it anyway. And by the time you get to your ideal companies, your ideal positions, you're actually equipped because you've had a lot of repetition, you've prepared your resume, you've had a lot of conversations on LinkedIn in person with colleagues, with coworkers, and now you're in a great position to actually break through. So I hope that helps. Again, I partnered with Course Careers if you are looking for a college alternative, and there's actually a discount code in the description below. But I also do work with a lot of college graduates who are either graduating college or have been working for a while and are looking to make that transition in. I'm not here to say that those boot camps are necessary, but I will say from my own experience, I struggled and wasted a lot of time where if there were boot camps that were available at an affordable price point when I was breaking in, it would have streamlined a lot of that work. But again, I figured it out without that. It's totally possible if that's the route you want to go, but did just want to mention that that is an option if you're interested. As always, I appreciate your viewership, and if you like this video, would appreciate a subscribe, but we will see you on our next video. Thanks.